Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee?
I don't drink coffee.
You sure? It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee?
I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it.
Oh, then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. There we go. Good morning. Hello. Who have we got here today? Yep. I think we should be able to cover the rest of Level Up today. I've been kind of interested in it as we've been going. I think it's kind of an interesting take, and I know a lot of people have been thinking about, well, what do we go with 5e in the light of the OGL situation and Wizards and Hasbro, and I think a lot of people are looking for something different. I know a lot of people are excited about Black Flag, but I thought, wait a minute, this is out here and had been kind of on the periphery of my radar for a while, and actually I've been forgotten about it. And actually, as I had pointed out, actually not a lot of people had brought it up. Like when we were talking about who could be a new Paizo or Pathfinder for 5th edition, no one in the comments ever even brought this game up. So then when I remembered it, I was like, you know what? I guess given the situation, we should just go ahead and take a look at it. Make a note here. About something that I've got to do. Okay, so that was my thinking. So we were told specifically to take a look at some of the spell casting. We've got some martial techniques. I want to know what that's about, and then we can go back and take a look at the beginning at the sort of character generation. Good morning, Stray. Jappards is here. Good morning. Toadstool Hollow is here, and Theo. It's great to see everybody. Millmaster, hi everybody. So let's go ahead and take a I did have a meeting last night, so I didn't get back in time to stream. So I had dinner last night, talking about some of the things that was going on, and definitely I'm going to be readjusting some of the priorities here on what I'm working on over the next couple of weeks, basically the next couple of weeks, because definitely the strategy where I've been working on a little bit of things, for a few hours each week or whatever, has not been working because it's not getting some of the things done that I really need to get done. So going to try to focus on a few tasks and really dive into them and get them done, so that we're not saying, oh, we're trying to get this done, and it's just going on and on and on. So we will I'm adjusting the way I'm doing things. Millmaster says I'm on cup number 4 and it's not even 10 o'clock. Time to chill. I'm late getting into it this morning, so this is my first cup. All right, let's breathe and then sip. That's a great way to chill. All right, let's do the morning messages, and then we'll take a look at Advanced 5e. The Morning Grind is brought to you by World Anvil. For all the writers out there, World Anvil has all the tools to help you write, organize, present, and publish rich settings with complex characters. Write, world build, and manage your story all in a single platform. Use the code MORNINGGRIND to get 40% off yearly subscriptions. The Morning Grind is also brought to you by the world of Ataltis. Ataltis is a new game setting designed for 5e rules. It rekindles the fire of classic heroic fantasy game worlds, but reimagined and refreshed. Check it out on Ataltis.com and get it for your table. The Morning Grind is also brought to you by the Thrones and Bones Viking-inspired fantasy RPG setting. It includes 37 new creatures and monsters, including the Valraven, a part raven, part wolf creature created when a raven feasts on an improperly buried battle-slain Jarl. Get the books on DriveThruRPG today. And thank you for being here with me live on The Morning Grind. And if you're watching on replay, welcome to you as well. It's great to have you here. If you're enjoying The Morning Grind, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. It will really help the channel grow, and I would be very thankful. We also have the Ravenkeep Discord server you can join if you would like to be a part of the community. Alright, that's what you need to know. Let's get to the main topic. I'm going to drop a link here in the chat also to the Cool Name RPG, because that's Mark's RPG that he's got on Kickstarter right now, which is another way, or a third option, I suppose, for going forward without Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro as we go forward. So Cool Name, the Cool Name RPG is something that's being built from the ground up. So it's not 5th edition, but he did fund. He's at $9,340 now, of trying to raise $8,000, and he's got 150 backers. So that is going well over there. So, all right. What else? Anything else we need to say? I don't think so. Let's pull up the Advanced 5e book then. So we've been through a lot of this. One thing I thought we were about to go straight on to spellcasting, but there is this thing about combat maneuvers. This short section, we've got exertion pool and maneuvers in combat. So there is apparently some extra material here about combat maneuvers. You know, I was thinking about some of the different actions that you can take in combat, and this might be about combat maneuvers here as well. I was thinking about Dungeon Crawl Classics and how it basically has all of the specialist kind of like fighting stuff just given to the martial classes as something special to help balance them out against casters. And the more I think about that, the more I potentially think that's a good idea. So if you really want somebody to be able to do something unique with a weapon, well, that whose niche is that? That should be, or could be, the martial warrior characters kinds of niches. So we'll see how this is done right here. So I don't even know. I wasn't expecting more. So combat maneuvers. What is this? Combat maneuvers encompass the techniques honed by warriors devoted to learning the nuances of battle, discovered and perfected through innumerable fights and countless hours of practice. As adventurers become more skilled in the arts of combat, what they accomplish with a seemingly simple stroke grows in breadth and scope, making true masters as deadly in a duel as any archmage. Okay, so I guess this is exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to use this to balance out casting against magic users. Even novices make use of combat maneuvers, however, and with the right timing and a bit of luck, they can change the course of critical battles. So, maneuvers in combat. Let's go down here. Adventurers can do much more than just hit an opponent or dodge a blow, instead delivering special attacks that debilitate or turn a foe's missed assault into a painful mistake. Many of these techniques are combat maneuvers, sublime methods and tactics that make every combatant and their approach to fighting unique. You know a number of combat maneuvers determined by your class and level. Your known combat maneuvers are chosen from the combat traditions you are proficient with. When you learn a new maneuver, you can choose one of the maneuvers you know and replace it with another maneuver of the same degree or lower. Using a combat maneuver requires spending one or more exertion points and either a bonus action, reaction, or action. Certain combat maneuvers require 2 or more attacks from extra attacks or the use of other class features. And if you are unable to use the attack action to make many attacks on your turn, then the combat maneuver requires you cannot use that combat maneuver. You know, we were looking at the different just general options people had in combat, and that was extensive in this game. It seemed to add even more than, or it did add even more than what was in 5e. And now we've got something even more that's determined by class and level. So a maneuver sometimes forces a target to make a saving throw. So in this case, the target would make a saving throw. The saving throw is calculated as follows: DC 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your strength or dexterity modifier. Is this got like a tree of these? Basic maneuvers. Combat maneuvers. Okay, so there's a big list here. Okay, stances. The complexities of each combat stance require the right state of mind, making the reordering of one's tactical view a necessary active focus. Activating a combat stance requires a bonus action. Once activated, a combat stance remains active until you are knocked unconscious, stunned, or activate a different combat stance before a long rest or choose to end it on your turn. So some of these, some of the complexities of each combat, stance require the right state of mind. That doesn't tell me what they do. I've noticed that in several places in this rule book that it's not quite as clear. So what does the combat stance do? This is about activating a combat stance, but what exactly does that do? Do I have to be in a certain combat stance in order to perform some maneuvers? But it says that activating a combat stance is a bonus action, so that doesn't seem like it's all that big a deal. Good morning, Michael of St. Joseph. Jappard says, how does it handle multiclassing and maneuvers? I don't know how it handles multiclassing in general, so I don't know how it applies to this either. Kiss, I saw that there is a 1977 Traveler box still in shrink wrap on eBay, $800. Wow. Exertion pool. A warrior requires willpower, whether born from discipline, survival instinct, or bloodlust, to control the ebb and flow of the combat around them. Every call to act beyond a typical block or strike depletes this cool disposition. To use a combat maneuver, you must spend exertion points. You have a maximum number of exertion points equal to double your proficiency bonus. You regain any spent exertion points at the end of a short or long rest. Alternatively, you can meditate, refocus, and stretch to refill your exertion pool more quickly. You spend hit dice to do so, recovering 1d4 exertion points for each hit die expended. The process takes 1 minute per expended hit die. Okay, so we've got to expend these things. This is our resource that allows us to not do, or to do basic maneuvers or combat maneuvers in general. Melee combat is not always an exchange of weapon attacks. Sometimes you're trying to subdue, not kill. Okay. All creatures can use basic maneuvers, even if they do not have access to combat maneuvers. No exertion points are required to use a basic maneuver. Unless otherwise noted, use of a basic maneuver replaces an attack on your turn. When you successfully use a basic maneuver, you also deal basic melee damage. This is equal to 1 plus your strength modifier. Basic melee damage is bludgeoning damage, but the narrator's discretion may be piercing or slashing. You cannot use a basic maneuver to activate any features that deal additional damage, unless the feature specifically states otherwise. Any creature with a challenge rating of 0 cannot deal basic melee damage. Didn't we already say, like, disarm? And I think I remember, like, grab already being there. Hang on. I want to go back up. Is it, like, we've noticed that sometimes this says things in multiple places. So what did we say are just our combat options? Actions in combat. So maybe we're wrong. So attack, cast a spell, dash, disengage, dodge, help, hide, press the attack, ready, search, sprint, tumble. Okay, those were our actions in combat. All right. So actually, I did not see disarm there. So that's something different. That's a basic maneuver. So I guess these are more things that you can do that are a kind of an attack. So disarm. You can use the disarm maneuver to attempt to knock an item or weapon from a creature's hand. If you are unable, so did it say that these do not require? Yeah, no. I was about to say there's no exertion point here. So no exertion points are required to use a basic maneuver. So what is the difference between a combat action and a basic maneuver? Like, what makes disarm a basic maneuver and not a combat action in the understanding of this game? So you can use the disarm maneuver to attempt to knock an item or a weapon from a creature's hand. If you're able to make multiple attacks with the attack action, this maneuver replaces one of them. The target must be within your reach and be holding an item, either carried or wielded. The target makes a strength or dexterity saving throw against your maneuver DC. On a failure, you deal basic melee damage and the target drops the item in its space. The target has advantage if it's larger than you or holding that item with 2 or more hands, and a target smaller than you has disadvantage. Okay. I still don't understand exactly what makes that a basic maneuver, because it says that all creatures can use basic maneuvers, even if they don't have access to combat maneuvers. So this is tossing it back to everybody and not just martial characters. No exertion points are required to use a basic maneuver. I'm not getting. Use a basic maneuver is an action in combat too. So, okay, so was that up there? Let's see. Because that would be interesting if I just didn't scroll by it and said, hey, use, oh, yes, okay, yes, you're right. Now we've got this right here. So that's actually on the same level as this. Tumble. So use a basic maneuver is an action in combat. Thank you, Inner Light. Yes. So that's what's going on. Zero Theory says, should be more clear. These are the main action moves, etc. So it's the last one right here. So use of a basic maneuver. You can always choose to disarm, grapple, knock down, overrun, or shove as a basic maneuver instead of making an attack. See Chapter 9, Maneuvers, for the rules that govern these basic maneuvers. Or you can use, okay, so we are actually still going here. Use a combat maneuver. So we're about to figure out what combat maneuvers. Many combat maneuvers are used alongside making an attack, but some have their own action costs. Use an object is also something you can do. Okay, so then making an attack is the next heading. that goes back up. So tumble, use a basic maneuver, use a combat maneuver, use an object. Okay, so those are things you can do in combat. Okay. I'm still not sure what the benefit of saying this is a combat maneuver rather than just a different type of thing you can do is, but we will see. Okay, grab on. While you cannot grapple a creature 2 or more size categories larger than you, you can grab onto it. So I guess that's like somebody jumping on top of the giant troll. Grapple. You can use the grapple maneuver to grab or wrestle a creature. Knock down. What is overrun? You can use an action or bonus action to make an overrun maneuver to move through a hostile creature's space by forcing your way past. Make a strength saving throw against the target's maneuver DC. On a success, you deal basic melee damage and can move through the hostile creature's space once this turn. The creature you choose just lets you pass instead of rolling. Wait, so we knew we could tumble through a hostile creature space, but overrun allows you to move through a hostile creature space by forcing your way past. Make a strength saving throw against the target's maneuver DC. If you succeed, so I think we'd come up with make a strength saving throw against the target's maneuver DC. So you do this. Wait, this is okay. Who doesn't want to ride a dragon? Yes, exactly. Combat maneuvers use exertion points. Right. Basic maneuvers don't. Right. So that's why I was saying with the basic maneuvers, why is because these don't require exertion points and they're not restricted by type of character. I don't know. Okay, so if you're doing an overrun action, this says that you make a strength saving throw against the target's maneuver DC. On a success, you deal basic melee damage and can move through the hostile creature's space once per turn. The creature can choose to just let you pass instead of rolling. You have advantage if you are larger than the target or disadvantage if you are smaller. If you are 2 or more sizes smaller than the target, you may move through the hostile creature space without making a save. You still provoke attacks of opportunity if you move beyond a creature's reach. So, when I saw a tumble, I was like, so that's the basic way to get past another character in their square. But we've got overrun as well. Inner Light says this is very similar to combat feats from Iron Heroes 3rd edition rule set. I think that one is also one that still it is still on the list. We haven't looked at that one yet. Shove. You can use the shove maneuver to push a creature away. If you're able to make multiple attacks with the attack action, this maneuver replaces one of them. The target must be within your reach and is no more than one size category larger than you. The target makes a strength saving throw against your maneuver DC. On a failure, you deal basic melee damage and push the target a number of feet away from you equal to 5 + 5 for every 5 points it failed its saving throw by. You can move the creature in any direction away from you, to the side, forward, or diagonally away. The creature that is shoved off a precipice is propelled off of whatever it is standing on. It does not receive any saving throw or ability to grab onto something to avoid falling down. Okay, now we get to combat maneuvers. And okay, there are a lot of them. A lot of them. Let's take a look at some examples. What are examples of combat maneuvers? Things like agile feint, gain advantage against a nearby creature. Blinding blow stance, attack in a shifting blow of deft strikes that make it easy to blind opponents. Branding steel, brand a foe to make it reticent to approach or attack you. Charge, move and make a melee attack. Dangerous signature, cut a symbol into your target in order to frighten it. So I guess if you're Zorro, there you go. Death blow, make an attack that critically hits and possibly even incapacitates your opponent. Disarming counter, your enemy drops their weapon when they miss you. Double tackle, you and an ally knock a creature prone. That's like Merry and Pippin tackling Boromir, right? In the Fellowship of the Ring movie. Exploit footing, trip a creature which misses you. Flowing form. Make melee attacks against all enemies who miss you. Heart Seeker. Aim for and exploit a foe's weak spot with a dangerous shot. Hurl Ally. Throw a smaller ally at a creature within 20 feet. Okay. Arcana Unearthed evolved, rewrote the magic system. Iron Heroes rewrote the combat system. Zero Theory says, my players love it when I hand out a 3-page cheat sheet. This seems very granular, but also a lot of different ways to narrate combat. Like the gnome. The gnomes are for punting. Lean into it. Knock your target prone when you hit with a melee attack. Look at me. Turn your weapon attacks into distractions that allow allies to move through the battlefield more freely. Mugging hit. Make a sleight of hand against a creature you have hit. Perplexing Fury. Cause your enemy to suffer a disadvantage when you focus all of your attacks on them. Preternatural Strike. Strike targets who normally require magic. Reassuring Pat. Encourage your mount and restore some of its hit points. Saddle Blows. On a hit, make your target confused, prone, or slowed. Spinning Parry. Use a reaction to evade an opponent's strike and swap places with your attacker, stunning them. This is a lot. Warding Wield. Increase your AC by 2 for 1 round. Wounded Animal Gambit. Pretend to die and then strike when an opponent makes themselves vulnerable. Okay, so movement and combat maneuvers. Any movement granted by a combat maneuver only affects how far you can move on your turn if it refers to your speed. Hurdle Ally is genius. Hurl Ally, yeah. Hurdle Ally. Now that's also something that sometimes but that would be another way to get by spaces that are occupied by friendly creatures. As long as they are smaller than your size, you can use the Hurdle Ally attack. Well, you learn maneuvers, so a long list to choose from makes sense. Yeah. So it did seem like you're not supposed to be picking from that during combat. You're supposed to learn some of them, right? Is feigning a ranger skill? I don't know. Well, I guess that's what we're supposed to be getting into right here. So this says the Adamant Mountain maneuvers. Hardiness, might, power. Engaging in combat means during some amount of suffering, and those who make use of adamant mountain maneuvers are well prepared to weather their opponent's blows, relying not just on their might, but the careful and expert application of foes in aspects of battle. So I think there was a list. This may have something to do where the setting starts to come back in. Because I saw that list, and I suppose that at the very beginning, there's a list of named things. So I suppose these are some type of setting specific types of schools, martial schools that know different maneuvers here. So it says first degree, second degree, third degree. So, okay. So lots of things that if you're part of this particular school that you're able to do. And I suppose this is the number of exertion points that need to be expended. Biting Zephyr maneuvers. Mirror Glance maneuvers. So these are organized in some way. Mist and Shade maneuvers. rapid current maneuvers. So it does kind of seem like these are the spells for the martial classes. Spirited steed maneuvers, mounted soldiering warfare. All right. You're right. Arranged by school. Hey, DBJ. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. We were just going through. You're not too late. Oh, that was... Oh, yeah. So yeah, you're not too late. We were just looking at this combat maneuvers and trying to decide the difference between like the basic maneuvers and combat maneuvers and how this goes. Zero Theory says, are these available to all or special maneuvers picked up by a certain class? So the combat maneuvers were only available to certain classes, it seemed. The basic maneuvers were available to anyone to use. But all of this in here that requiring these exertion points, these are more specialized to certain groups of people. Zero Theory says, I do like the pool of action points used in combat to simulate getting tired over time. Yeah, it stops to... Of course, they're using fatigue. I thought that something kind of odd was they were using fatigue. They had this word fatigue, but it was really used, mainly it seemed to represent injury. But so I guess, casting has its own constraints, casting magic. So this was the exertion points were the constraints on doing all of this fun stuff. Oh, I thought I was done, but there are a lot more. So that long list was your like quick reference list, I suppose, to find one. But lots of these unending wheel maneuvers. Okay, so that was a lot. So I'll have to see how that plays. I suppose that there's got to be some people who are doing plays of this online. All for the fighter. Select schools. All for the fighter. A DBGA says that. So they're all available to the fighter, but select schools for other martial classes. It's like a 0.25 spellcaster for martials. Okay, so the fighter could have any of them. So that is kind of like then what we were saying that Dungeon Crawl Classics is doing when that all of these are available, that this is trying to give the martial classes something to keep up with the casters. So that does seem like what's going on here. Okay, so and DBJ, you actually specifically had pointed out taking a look at spellcasting, because we're about to look at spellcasting, and then we're going to go back to the beginning and go through character generation, specifically just looking at the heritages and the cultures and the character classes. But DBJ, you had said specifically that you wanted to look at, you thought that we should look at spells and spellcasting as some of the differences between 5e and advanced 5e here. So let's go and take a look at spells and see what's going on over there. Hey, we do have rare spells here. So let's see here. Many spellcasters leave their mark on the world by individualizing their spells. Some of these unique spells have been lost to antiquity, but a few are preserved in ancient scrolls. Some spell descriptions include one or more rare versions of the spell. A rare spell is a little-known variant of an existing spell, which offers a change or improvement to the spell's functionality. It's usually named after its creator. For instance, a rare version of the Firebolt cantrip, Katrina's Hellish Firebolt, ignores fire resistance. The narrator determines which, if any, rare spells are available to discover or research. A rare spell can't be chosen when selecting a new spell at a character creation or when gaining a level. It is obtained on a specially scribed scroll or learned through costly research. When a character requires a scroll bearing a rare version of the spell, they may spend a long rest to learn it if it is on their spell list. Oh, like, I guess on their character classes spell list. Because, like, why would they be learning it if it's on there? No. If it's something that's available to them, I guess. Doing so destroys the scroll. Alternatively, with the narrator's assistance, a player can use the research downtime activity to invent or reinvent rare spells. For classes which only know a limited number of spells, a rare spell does not count against their number of spells known. Okay, that's important. For classes which only know a limited number of spells, a rare spell is not going to count against it. For classes which prepare a limited number of spells, the spell must be prepared separately. So we've got casting spells. So I would assume we're using the kind of Vancian magic here because we're not probably getting too far away from what 5th edition magic is. So we've got spells level 0 to 9. We do have spell slots here. Spell slots are expended when someone casts a spell of that level. Casting spells with a higher slot. Okay, so we can up power spells. Some spells have a more powerful effect when using a higher slot. Makes sense. Casting spells without slots. Some magic items allow a character to cast certain spells without expending spell slots. For instance, a magical necklace of prayer beads allows its owner to cast spells such as Bless once per day. A magical spell scroll allows a character to cast a single spell if that spell is on the character's spell list. After the spell is cast, the scroll loses its magic. A character who uses a magical scroll can cast it at a higher level, or even cast a spell of a higher level than a character who can normally cast it by making an ability check. 10 plus the level they want to cast it. Okay. Cantrips, 0 level, don't require slots. Ritual casting does not require a spell slot, but requires an extra 10 minutes. I don't actually find that came up all that often in 5e when I was playing a wizard. Maybe it did, but I don't really remember that. I don't remember that being a really important thing. And I think it was probably because if I were casting a spell when I had the extra 10 minutes, I was probably able to rest anyway. So it just didn't really seem that, so I would have recovered the slot or whatever. It just doesn't seem like that actually came up all that often. Is that what you've encountered? How about have you used a lot of ritual casting in 5th edition? Oh, yeah, exactly. Adventure hooks. Yeah, exactly. Regarding the spells. Oh, you want Zero's Fireball of Frost. I've got a quest for you. Exactly. A caster can't cast spells while wearing armor in which they are not proficient. We've got the classical spell schools right here. This book contains spells using the following schools. So they say that the formal classical spell schools are not the only way magic users throughout the ages have labeled spells. In the multiverse, there's a near infinite array of spell schools. Some are based on elemental sources like beasts, fire, plants, shadow, water, and so on, while the others are based on effects such as compulsion, healing, and more. While a spell can belong to only one classical spell school, it can belong to a number of other spell schools. These spell schools have no rules of their own, but may be referred to by other game rules. For instance, a monster's description might state that they can cast any spell in the fire school. This does seem like a reasonable way to organize something like that. So if a monster has like spells as powers or something like that, instead of having to list all of them, say, hey, fire school. As long as you can easily access that. This book contains spells that using the following schools: acid, affliction, air, arcane, attack, beasts, chaos, cold. Seems like a way to tag spells like Pathfinder was doing. Communication, compulsion, divine, earth, enhancement. Oh, lots of these. Evil, fear, fire, force, good, healing, knowledge, law, lightning, movement, nature, necrotic, negation, obscurement, planar, plants, poison, prismatic, protection, psychic, radiant, scrying, senses, shadow, shape changing, sound, storm, summoning, technological, telepathy, teleportation, terrain, thunder, time, transformation, unarmed, undead, utility, water, weaponry, weather. 1 actions to cast. Some are cast with a bonus action. In 4th and 5th edition, I can remember a lot of times when the ritual rules were used. The Neckbeardia Elf Slayer Chronicles is a hilarious use of ritual casting from 4th edition. Now, 4th edition, I can't speak to because I never played that. Jappard says, way better way to organize spells for monsters than only having 3 spell lists for everyone to choose from. DBJ says, more spells have upcasting options, many rare spells, and narrator surprises from NPCs with unique powers. So most spells take 1 action to cast. Some are bonus actions. Other spells can be used as a reaction. This type of spell I'll describe the trigger that allows the spell to be cast. For instance, a wizard may cast shield when hit by an attack or targeted by a magic missile. Conjuration spells that summon powerful or extraplanar creatures take longer to enact, but by choosing to forge a more tenuous connection, it's possible to cast these more quickly than normal. When casting Conjure Celestial, Conjure Elemental, Conjure Fey, Conjure Minor Elemental, or for any other spell that conjures creatures that has a casting time of 1 minute, a spellcaster can choose to reduce the spell's casting time to 1d4 plus 1 actions and the spell's duration to 1 minute. The caster must maintain concentration on the casting each round, using an action on each of their turns until the casting is complete. At any time in their turn after the casting begins, the spellcaster may choose to abandon the rapid summoning to cast a different spell that has a casting time of 1 action and use a spell slot of the same level. And we've got range, targeting, areas. The process of casting a spell requires the use of specific objects called components. These components may allow observers to recognize the spell as being cast. A spell may include any of the following types of components. V is vocalized. A character under the silent spell or otherwise unable to make noise can't cast a spell with a vocalized component. Scene. A spell with a scene component is apparent for creatures to see. Hand gestures. Coruscations, I don't know that word, of kaleidoscoping magic forces or ghosts conjured from the ether. Material, a spell with a material component lists specific physical objects they must provide. Some spells note their material components consumed during casting. All right. Okay, we're getting into saving throws. Anything special there? Attack roll. The attack bonus for a spell's attack is the spellcaster's ability modifier plus the spellcaster's proficiency bonus. So, all right, let's check out some spells. Hey, Grimhild, good to see you. Good to see you. Glad to have you here. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's take a look at Acid Arrow. Okay, so Acid Arrow is one we know. So Acid Arrow is a 2nd level evocation, acid, and arcane spell. It's for sorcerers and wizards. 1 action. It's got a long range, 120 feet, creature or object, and you need a flint arrowhead in order to cast Acid Arrow. During a jet of acid streaks towards the target like a hissing green arrow. Make a ranged spell attack. On a hit, you suffer. The target takes 4d4 acid damage and 2d4 ongoing acid damage for 1 round. On a miss, the target takes half damage. Cast at higher levels. Increase the spell's initial and ongoing damage by 1d4 per spell slot above 2nd. So a rare version of this spell is Gabal's Blinding Acid Arrow. The arrow flies to the target's sensory organs, seeking to damage its sight. A creature damaged by the spell makes a dexterity saving throw or is blinded until the end of its next turn. Rare. Krevrin's Insidious Acid Arrow. The acid stinks and disorients as it burns. A creature damaged by the spell makes a Constitution saving throw with advantage or is poisoned until the end of next round. All right. Let's find some other ones that we're familiar with. Well, actually, what is Angel Paradox? What is that? That's not what I'm familiar with, but let's see what that is. 7th level evocation, Radiant Undead. Duration 7 days. The target is bombarded with a fraction of energy stolen from some slumbering deific source. Immediately takes 40 radiant damage. This spell ignores resistances but does not ignore immunities. A creature killed by this spell does not decay and cannot become undead for the spell's duration. Days spent under the influence of the spell don't count against the time limit of spells such as Raise Dead. This effect ends if the corpse takes necrotic damage. Maybe we ought to include that as a damage type. Neurotic. Casting at higher levels, the damage and duration increases to 45 radiant damage and 1 year when using an 8th level spell slot, or 50 damage, and until dispelled at 9th level. Jappard says, honestly, I would like more spell components, some optional, but that's just me. So Grimhild says, it's been a while. Sorry, been busy working on making equipment to really bust some heads. Spiritually speaking, of course. That's all right. As long as we're getting stuff done, that's the important thing around here. Zero Theory says, I like the rare version of these spells. Clever idea. Grimhild says, also like the rarity of spells so that players aren't under the assumption they can just take any spell. Neurotic and psychotic damage are both subsets of psychic. Maybe so. Maybe so. Neurotic damage, a subset of psychic. That does make sense. So maybe it's already there. Okay, let's take a look at Animating Dead. 3rd level necromancy, necrotic, summoning, and undead. So you got to have the corpse. You got to have 2 copper coins. You animate a mortal's remains to become your undead servant. If the spell is cast upon bones, you create a skeleton. If it's cast upon a corpse, you can choose to create a skeleton or a zombie. The narrator has the undead statistics. While it's within 60 feet of you, you can use a bonus action to mentally command the undead. When you command multiple undeads using this spell, you must give them all the same command. You must decide the action the undead takes and where it moves during its turn, or you can issue a general command such as guarding an area. If not given a command, the undead only defends itself. The undead continues to follow a command until its task is complete. The undead is under your control for 24 hours, after which it stops obeying your commands. You must cast the spell on the undead before your spell ends to maintain control of it for another 24 hours. Casting the spell in this way reasserts control for up to 4 of your previously animated undead instead of animating a new one. You create or reassert control over 2 additional undead for each spell slot above 3rd. When commanding more than 3 undead, they make group attack rolls. So rare is Komanov's Chilling Animate Dead. Natural weapon attacks by undead created using this spell deal cold damage instead of bludgeoning damage. I suppose you could do a lot of variations like that. So let's take a look at Arcane Sword. You summon an insubstantial yet deadly sword to do your bidding. Make a melee spell attack against a target of your choice within 5 feet of the sword, dealing 3d10 force damage on a hit. Rare is Krevrin's Bloody Arcane Sword. The spell damage is reduced to 3d6. And when a creature is damaged by the spell, it makes a Constitution saving throw or suffers a level of fatigue. And actually, it turns out fatigue is kind of a big deal here. So that's like basically giving it the wounded condition it's felt like in Pathfinder. What's Burning Burning Hands? 1st level, Evocation, Arcane, and Fire. 15-foot cone. A thin sheet of flame shoots forward from your outstretched hands. Use creatures in the air. Each creature in the area takes 3d6 fire damage. The fire ignites any flammable unattended objects in the area. Damage increases by 1d6 for every spell slot above. Gabal's Inverted Burning Hands is a rare version of the spell. The spell deals cold damage instead of fire damage. Creatures in the area make a Constitution saving throw instead of a Dexterity saving throw, and in the area becomes difficult terrain for 1 minute as it is covered in hoarfrost. it kind of, I mean, you could reverse a lot of different spells. Wasn't there reversing spells in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons? Because that's an easy way to get more spells without having to write out more spells. Is like, well, some of these spells can be reversed, in which case they do the opposite. So this is like the inversion of Burning Hands would be ice instead of fire. Seems like you could do that. A lot of rare spells also with that type of formula. Let's go down to Magic Missile, because that's classic. Because obviously we could be here all day looking at spells. But let's go down. Let's see what Magic Missile is in this. Magic Weapon, Magic Mouth. Oh. Magic Missile right here. So first level, Evocation, Arcane, Attack, and Force. A trio of glowing darts of magical force unerringly and simultaneously strike the target, each dealing 1d4 plus 1 force damage. Cost at higher levels, evoke 1 additional dart and target up to 1 additional creature for each slot level above first. Krevrin made a lot of different spells here. Ruinous Magic Missile. Creatures damaged by this spell make a strength saving throw. Creatures damaged by this spell make a strength saving throw or are rattled until the end of your next turn. I guess rattled actually has rules. I think this is the second time we've come up with a rattled, right? I want to check that. So that's the way that we're doing spells. Anything else we need to specifically take a look at? Any spell anyone specifically wants to look at? I do want to go down here. Okay, so this looks like, well, rattled. So rattled. See, I like the other, some of the other ones that we've looked at that specifically uses a type of font, a special type of font or something that calls out when the game is specifically referring to some type of condition. So that just used rattled. So I didn't specifically know. I just kind of had a hunch that rattled might be an actual condition in here. So it is. So rattled is a condition. A rattled creature cannot benefit from expertise dice. A rattled creature cannot take reactions. A creature that is immune to being stunned is immune to being rattled. So what type of conditions do we have? Blinded, bloodied. Conditions. A creature is bloodied when reduced to half its hit points or less. Okay. Does that do anything? Or is it just that other things are going to refer to something that makes something happen when it's bloodied? Bloodied, charmed, confused, deafened, doomed. Now, doomed was important. Encumbered, frightened, grappled, incapacitated, invisible, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, prone, rattled, restrained, slowed, stunned, unconscious. Tracked conditions. Oh, that's the fatigue and strife. Yep. Got there. Yeah, it should have been bolded. I agree. I just wish PDF would link to the rules with a click. Yeah, I was hoping that that was the case. So the table of contents is linked. And I understand that takes a lot of work to like go through each one of these and provide and like hot link this right here, chapter 1, game mastery troubleshooting. Oh, no, actually that's to a whole different book. So you wouldn't hot link that one, but like rattled. Yeah. It would be nice if that was linked right down to to what it was, or other times when it says, go see some other chapter or something like that. That would be nice. But at least in this book, the table of contents is hot linked, and that's nice. The Last Phoenix says, I think bloody is mainly to get players a hunch they took the enemy down to half health. Ah, okay. So that was not something that's just on players. Actually, let me go check that again. So our conditions, so bloodied. Yeah, it says a creature. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the player characters. But yeah, a creature, you would let your players know that what they're fighting has been bloodied. So that's interesting. So it could be, could clue you in that where are you in this fight? Yeah, are you supposed to say that? Maybe you are. Okay, so then let's go up. I mean, let's just go on. I don't want to. I think we can wrap up this book in this game today. At least this book. I do want to take a look at its game mastery guide later. But okay, so character creation. So I don't think we need to just go through standard character creation. Because I'm specifically interested in looking at the different heritages and also the classes. But let's just so the characters in the world belong to a heritage which includes certain biological characteristics and defines some aspect of their physical appearance. The character's culture details the society and circumstances that helped them understand how they are, which I think is, we've seen that in a lot of RPGs now, and I tend to like that. How do we determine ability scores? There are 6 key ability scores that factor into everything that your character does during the game: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Ability scores are generated randomly by rolling 4 6-sided dice and recording the totals of the highest 3 on a spare sheet of paper. You continue to do this until you have a total of 6 numbers. Choose where you'd like to assign these numbers by recording each next to an ability score. That was often a way that we generated ability scores in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. 46, drop the lowest, assign them wherever you want. That's pretty generous. Okay, origins. Languages. Okay, so here we are with heritage. So here we get into, presented in this section are 8 heritages from which you may choose to build your character. A character's physical appearance is determined by their heritage, as well as physical aspects like size and speed. All traits gained from your heritage are considered to be biological in nature. While these traits are primarily mechanical, your heritage can still play a large part in shaping your adventurer's story. When choosing your heritage, ask first who your character's parents are. Do you still have a relationship with them, or did something happen? If so, what? If your character was adopted and raised a culture other than their parents, you can think about how that has affected them. If your character still has a relationship with their family, think about how that has affected their decision to adventures. Okay, so we've got Dragonborn here. So, okay, DBJ has extra info here. Fatigue and strife have increased in advanced 5e and ways to have increased in 5e and ways to remove it. Bloodied is just a sign to activate a monster action or ability to make morale at half HP. Okay. Yeah, we did look at fatigue and strife yesterday. We went through all of that. Bloodied is just a sign to activate a monster action or ability or morale. Grimhild says some abilities won't work if a creature is bloodied. Some won't work unless they are bloodied. Barbarian's bloodied rage sounds metal. So we got Dragonborn. I like that picture right there. Drawing upon great reservoirs of draconic power, you can unleash magical destruction upon your foes. You can use your dragon breath as an action. Draconic armor. Draconic fins. Some Dragonborn seem naturally adapted to aquatic environments with sleek, hydrodynamic, and often reflective scales. So you become swimmer, you get deep, dark vision, and hard to hit. Draconic wings. Some Dragonborn are born with draconic wings. They tend to have slender frames and smooth scale patterns, along with some rudder-like tail to help them fly with their stocky wings. They're really far too heavy and lack the strength to really soar like true dragons, but wings will still allow them to lift off and fly a considerable distance before tiring. Draconic Paragon. With enough time and training, any Dragonborn can unlock their draconic potential. When you reach 10th level, your Dragonborn gift dramatically improves. In addition, you gain resistance to the damage type dealt by your dragon breath. If you already have resistance to that type of damage, you gain immunity to it instead. So you gain impenetrable draconic armor. Your claws and scales harden and the deadly consistency of a true dragon. Your claws deal slashing damage equal to 1d8 plus your strength modifier, and your AC increases by 1. Dragonborn culture. Okay, here we have dwarf. Dark vision. You are born with the gift of creation. You gain proficiency with one set of artisan's tools. Maximum hit points increases by 1 every time you gain a level. You gain an expertise dice on saving throws against effects that would knock you prone, on saving throws made to resist being shoved as well. As a bonus action, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to 1d10 plus your level. These temporary hit points last 1 per minute. You can't use this trait again until after you finish a long rest. You also gain expertise on saving throws against poison, and you have resistance against poison damage. I guess that it sounds to me like, they were trying to come up with the difference, when do you use expertise and when do you use advantage and disadvantage? And we talked about that. I believe that was on the very first day when it was trying to make that or draw that distinction back and forth. So it seems like the expertise is a way to give you some type of extra bonus other than advantage and disadvantage, because you can only have advantage or disadvantage. You can't have it multiple times, right? So, what's another way that you could be good at something that would stack? It seems like they use expertise a lot in that regard. So Dwarven Paragon, so it seems like you upgrade your heritage at 10th level, and then you get more stuff at 10th level. Here is our elf. Dark Vision, Fey Ancestry. You gain expertise dice on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put you to sleep. Elves don't need sleep. Instead, they meditate deeply, remaining conscious. The common word for such a meditation is a trance. While meditating, you can dream after a fashion. Some dreams are actually mental exercises that become reflexive through years of practice. When you take a long rest, you spend 4 hours in a trance state instead of sleeping for 6 hours. During the trance, you suffer no penalty to passive perception. As long as a long rest remains 8 hours for you as normal, and the remainder of the time must be filled with only light activity. Mystic Report, Prescient Vision, Preternatural Awareness, and then once again, at level 10, you become an Elven Paragon and get more stuff. We've got Gnome in here. I'm not going to go through every one. We've got Halflings as well. Human. What does human get? Fast learner. With their shorter lifespans, humans can acquire knowledge at a higher rate than most long-lived heritages, although not all acquire the wisdom to use it. You gain proficiency in one additional skill of your choice. In addition, you require half as much time as normal to train yourself in the use of a suit of armor, tools, or weapons during downtime. Intrepid. Your survival instinct is remarkably strong. When you make an ability check, attack roll, or saving throw, you can choose to gain an expertise die on that roll. When you use this trait, you cannot use it again until you finish a short or long rest. Human gifts. Foes of humanity may see them as ants, but humans are equally difficult to eliminate. The ancestry of humans beings learn to survive through the harshest of conditions, such as drought, winter, and famine. Humans and their stubbornness can even pull themselves back from the brink of death and fulfill their dreams. You have the following traits. Feast and famine. You can tighten your belt during hard times. You can go a number of days equal to your constitution modifier without suffering any fatigue from lack of supply. Afterwards, you require twice as much supply for as many days as you went without. Radical perseverance. Through your sheer stubbornness and will to live, you sometimes manage to wriggle out of death's grasp. You only die after failing 4 death saving throws instead of 3. So I guess that's nice. DBJ says, check out the tyrannized culture. Okay. Will do. Robert says, this sounds awesome. Getting things for being human is kind of stuff that's a lot in in a lot more of these games now. So ingenious focus. When you fail a Constitution saving throw to maintain concentration, you can immediately re-roll it, taking the new result. There's a lot of stuff for these heritages here. Spirited travel. The power of movement is one of humanity's evolutionary advantages. An ancient human hunting strategy for killing fast game is persistence hunting, following prey relentlessly, shifting between walking and running endlessly until a beast becomes too exhausted to defend itself. Many humans maintain their health through running, and foot races are a common or a universal favorite game. In a word, humans gifted at running will go far. You have the following traits. Okay, so you don't get all of these. I was about to say, you really get all of these? But you do not. It says, in addition to the traits found in your human heritage. So these were the human traits right here. So in addition to that, you pick one of the following gifts. Die-hard survivor, ingenious focus, or spirited traveler. So pick one. So if you pick spirited traveler, you get desperate dash. When you take a dash action, your movement this turn does not provoke attacks of opportunity. Something about marathon runner and sojourner's fortitude. You gain an expertise die. So that does make sense. That's not all humans getting all this. Because I was like, my God, this is a lot of stuff that you get. So same thing with halfling gifts. So I guess that's the standard way this is doing this. The traits, that's what everybody gets. But then you get to, in addition to the traits found with the halfling heritage, you would get the following. You would make one choice. So you're making one choice beyond your traits. That makes more sense. I did start a few minutes late today. Orcs are like Vulcans in this game, emotional beasts dedicated to numbing those feelings. I do want to know how. I do want to look at orcs specifically because we've talked a lot on this channel about the philosophy of orcs and orcishness, the orcs' association with the demonic and how that has changed over the course of time. So I saw that they've got orcs in here. Okay, well, here we are at orc. So let's see what's going on with orc. So orcs are passionate and fearless above all else. When their passion is allowed to flourish, an orc can easily become widely renowned for their skills in the arts or whatever area catches their interest. All orcs share similar physical features, such as skin that comes in shades of green or gray, large boarish tusks, dark hair, large muscular features, and pointed ears. Due to the frequent conflicts of some tribes, orcs are considered to have particularly short lifespans, although this isn't entirely true. Outside of combat-oriented tribes, an orc can live quite a while, though not quite as long as humans. This is a far cry from the lifespan of decades many assume they have. So, orc traits. Orcs mature faster than humans, reaching adulthood around 14. They age noticeably faster, usually only living to be about 60 to 75 years old. Size. Orcs are rarely under 6 feet tall, and some weigh 200 pounds. Size is medium. Okay, dark vision. So another thing that gets dark vision. Your orcish blood grants you superior vision in dark and dim conditions. You can see in dim light within 60 feet of you as if it were bright light, and in darkness as if it were dim light. You cannot discern color. In darkness, only shades of gray. Heavy lifter. When determining your carrying capacity and the weight that you can push, drag, or lift, your size is considered to be large. Mighty attack. When you score a critical hit with a melee weapon, you can roll one of the weapon's damage dice an additional time and add it to the extra damage of the critical hit. So now, orcish gifts. So we get to choose one of these packages. Acclimatized. Your family hails from an area known for its extreme conditions, such as the Arctic desert or even a particularly treacherous swamp. Even if you've not spent much time there, the ability of your family to adapt to these living conditions has been passed down to you. So you get just like home. Choose one type of terrain reflecting the area from which your family hails: Arctic desert, mountain, or swamp. You ignore all naturally created difficult terrain of that type. Additionally, you gain an expertise dice on survival checks made within this terrain type and gain a type of damage resistance. Oh, that's nice. Related to your chosen terrain: Arctic, cold, desert, fire, mountain, lightning, swamp, poison. Ancestral blessing. Orcs with this gift are believed to have been blessed by their ancestors. Every family has their own belief for why this occurs. You get divine protection. You have resistance on radiant damage and touch of divinity. You know the resistance cantrip. In addition, you can cast the shield spell once per long rest. We've got magic adept as well. And then you become an orc paragon at 10th level. Plane touched. So I often play Aasimar. Or at least I don't know if I often play them. I've had two very iconic characters that I really enjoyed that were Aasimar. So this is plane touched. This seems to make sense. I figured that's the way they were going. So here is your general plane touched. So Aasimar is one of the packages that you can choose. Tiefling is one of the packages you can choose as well. So that looks like two different packages. And then at Paragon's Gift. So both of those are subcategories of plane touched. Seems to make sense. So culture. Now, I do like this. See, we've got caravaner, roaming caravans. Because I was going to say, when I was thinking about like the places where you're from could influence your culture, there are two ways you could do that, I think of. You could do that in a very world-specific way, in which you're actually calling out the specific names of, you're from this location or you're from that location. And if you've got a well-developed world and the players understand that world, then that could work just fine. But on the other hand, if they don't, you could do it in a more general way. So this is nice that, okay, I want to be from a caravan culture. You can come up with the name of it later, but we can come up with what what those mechanical effects are, what that means. We can do that without having to know a specific location. We can come up with that later. Pan Smith says, it sounds like it makes the players more heroic, but doesn't make the game grittier or more challenging. Maybe. I haven't gotten to play yet. Neuromancer says, wow, an advanced stuff for 5e? That sounds swell. Yeah, I've been enjoying going through this. So I think it's definitely worth taking a look at. And what I was saying in the beginning, if you are just coming in, I thought this was a good thing to go over, which is why I've spent several days on it, because people are looking for something else that's, 5e like, but trying to go Wizards free and Dungeons and Dragons branding free. And of course, a lot of people have talked about Black Flag, but that's not out yet. But I didn't see a whole lot of people talking about advanced 5e. Like, it wasn't in the comments, it really hadn't been something I'd been paying a lot of attention to. I had known about it, but then kind of forgotten about it. And I was like, oh yeah, wait a minute. Hasn't somebody already done something like an advanced 5e? So this might be something that this is done by N Publishing. So it may be something that people that should be getting more attention, and might be something that people might want to immediately go to now, while even if they're waiting on Black Flag. Because it seems like it'll still be a while before Black Flag gets out. So I like this idea of what I was saying here about coming up with cultures that aren't necessarily world specific. So caravaner, circus folk, collegiate. So like, okay, what does collegiate do? Sometimes a village, farm, or city becomes a hub of new ideas and innovations in knowledge and technology. Other times, great institutes of learning arise, universities and colleges where they can spend an entire life of study. From those learned communities are renowned from their ability to apply their intellect to a large field of expertise. Characters raised in a collegiate culture share a variety of traits in common with one another. So this is not necessarily, culture like United States, but this could be collegiate. So this is much more specific. So you're talking about like college professor or a graduate student or something like that. So much more specific. I like that. I hadn't thought about that specifically. So characters raised in the collegiate culture share a variety of traits in common with one another. Philosophic mind. Your rationale shields your psyche occasionally. Once between long rests at the start of your turn, you can suppress the effects of an enchantment spell you are under for 1 round as your logic overrides it. Practiced artisan. You are proficient with calligrapher's supplies and 2 other artisan's tools. Studied discipline. You have extensive knowledge in a certain field. For all skill proficiencies gained through this trait, you will always choose which ability score to use for the roles. I mean, I've seen people try to do like scholar as a class. So, I mean, this is actually, it seems like a lot of stuff. It's not quite a class, but it does give you a bunch of stuff. So choose one of the following: architecture, engineering, fine arts, magic, mathematics, medicine, or sciences. So if you choose engineering, let's say, you gain proficiency in engineering and you gain an expertise die on checks to fix or take apart mechanical mechanisms. You also gain an expertise die on checks and saving throws made against environmental damage from structural changes and collapse. Cosmopolitan. Deep dwarf. Deep gnome. Dragonbound. Dragonbound clans live under the direct rule of a dragon. Dragon cult. Dragon cults exist in major cities, hidden deep within forgotten cellars or ancient crumbling ruins, plotting their draconic overlord's return to power. Eldarin. These elvish people are the most accustomed to life in the dreaming, what some people call the Feywild. It's sometimes said that Eldarin are the most ancient lineage of elves with the closest blood link to other fairies, or that elves expanded into the dreaming and were therefore transformed. Yes, so that's a forest gnome. So there are quite a few of these cultures. Forgotten folks. The forgotten folks are even more secretive than the notoriously reclusive forest gnomes. Their communities almost always share a strong familial bond with one another, even those they aren't related to. Forsaken. In world-shaking catastrophes where magic, disasters, and monsters run rampant, there are those that gritted their teeth and adapted to survive rather than flee their homes. Such cataclysms are now stories of a distant past, and descendants of these survivors continue to channel and embrace the unpredictability of the magical energies surrounding these ruined lands. Godbound? The Godbound were raised among the faithful. Such communities vary from temples and monasteries to massive theocracies that span entire continents. High Elf, Hill Dwarf, Imperial, Itinerant. Some wanderers may not have grown up with a single place to call home. Their culture is a mix of many, allowing them to see things from different angles and perspectives. Kithbane, Halfling. In a forgotten corner of the dreaming lies a territory called the Twilight, a silent world perpetually under the dim light of the setting sun. This place is home to the Kithbane, or the Twilight-touched halflings who have lived for generations in Half-Light. So we do have a mix of different things here with, what just happened? These cultures. Some of them are specific to a race, and some of them are not. So we've got 2 different uses here. Jappard says, I don't know how I feel about the races. I don't like tieflings and Iosimar getting lumped together. You wouldn't need to even be playing this. You could just pick and choose from this book and make house rules, just like using those rare spells. DBJ says, fatigue, strife, havens, and supply complicate the heroics. These are vectors these are vectors of harm to the powerful. Havens makes me think of like Middle Earth kinds of stuff. Yeah, it sent us, when we were specifically looking at the supply rules, I wanted to look at those, but it actually sent us to the Game Master Guide specifically to learn about supply. Robert says, love the Cult of the Dragon. Why is folks spelled with an X? I don't know. Very prominent in Greenwood Spellfire. Cool concept. Lone wanderer. So lone wanderer could be your culture. Mountain dwarf. Must barn halfling. Nomad. Settler, shadow elf. Steam forged. Stoic orc. There are some responsibilities, even among orcs, that require a cool head and tempered disposition. Those most sacred places in orcish lore are called stoic lands, places where heroes rose and fell, where gods wept or laughed. These stoic landings demand reverence, rite, tradition, and rituals to be observed and carried out faithfully. As many orcs lack the patience needed, the ancient orcish shamans found one solution, a rite called the quelling. Okay. Stoneworthy, stout halfling, tinker gnome, tunnel halfling. Oh, tyrannized. So here is one that DBJ specifically pulled out. Many people live in fear of a tyrannical ruler and of the militant minions that punish dissent and disobedience. Performative loyalty becomes necessary for survival until even those who oppose the ruler will sometimes betray their neighbors lest they be dragged away to torture and enslavement. Those who resist the tyrant learn to feign the role of a faithful soldier, and the cruel irony is that they often profit from the violent conquests of the regime they loathe. Characters raised in the tyrannized culture share a variety of traits in common with one another. All hail the tyrant, while with true freedom denied them, many learn to feign deference, while some resign themselves to collaborating with the tyrant's minions so as not to be suspected of disloyalty. You gain proficiency in either deception or intimidation. Defiant will. Whether out of fear, devotion to the tyrant, or a stalwart resistance, you refuse to be subdued. You gain an expertise die on saving throws made to resist being charmed, frightened, paralyzed, poisoned, stunned, or put to sleep. Saving face. You are careful not to show weakness in front of others or fear of losing status. If you miss with an attack roll or fail an ability check, you can gain a bonus to the roll equal to the number of allies you can see within 30 feet, possibly changing a failure into a success. So what happens? If you miss with an attack roll or fail an ability check, you can gain a bonus to the roll equal to the number of allies you can see within 30 feet, possibly changing a failure into a success. When you use this trait, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. Scars of courage. The tyrant's minions invariably have some preferred method of torment, and you have either learned to survive it or chosen to use the weapon of your oppressors against them. Choose either scars or scourge, and then choose one of the following damage types: acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, necrotic, poison, psychic, radiant, or thunder. Scars. You have resistance to the chosen damage type, or scourge. As a bonus action, you can enhance your next attack you make this turn. If the attack hits, it deals damage of the chosen type equal to your proficiency bonus. However, the sting of the scourge lessens after its initial strike. So after you deal this extra damage to the creature, this trait cannot deal extra damage to it again during the same combat. Languages. You can speak, write, and sign common, as well as one other language. What does this say up here? Okay, so this is some setting-specific stuff. That's interesting. Oh, villager is also one. War hordling, wildling, wood elf, and then you move into backgrounds. Well, that's a lot of stuff. That is a lot of stuff. The interesting thing to me is that sometimes the cultures were race or heritage specific. Andrew says, late to the party today, but was surprised to see the D&D movie ad during the Super Bowl. Oh, I didn't watch the Super Bowl yesterday. I was doing other things. So that's interesting to know. Thank you for bringing that up. So there was a D&D movie ad during the Super Bowl. That must have cost money. When is the Pathfinder movie coming out? I don't know. Okay, so is there anything else that we go through backgrounds now, acolyte, artisan, and charlatan. My issue with backgrounds was always that I don't want them to double up with classes or seem like with one class you have to take a certain background. Cultist, I think choosing a background should augment your class. Entertainer, because it often seems like some classes and backgrounds just seem to go together. And sometimes even like you should take it. Exile. So what are connections and mementos? Let's see what those are about. If your background provides a skill or tool proficiency you already have from another source, you can instead gain a different proficiency of the same type. So what is a memento? A memento, an item or of sentimental value worth less than 30 gold coins. 30 gold coins still sounds like a lot. A connection is an acquaintance, ally, or enemy from your past. So, for instance, let's look at cultist. You were a member of a sinister cult. You performed ancient rites found in forbidden tomes, seeking to empower a friend, a false god, or a fiend. Seeking to empower a friend, a fiend, a false god, or terrible being from a strange and distant realm. Why did you leave the cult? Did you come to recognize the emptiness of its promises of power? Did you witness horrors that shook your faith, or did you still nurture the dark edicts of your heart? So +1 to intelligence and one other ability score. So you're getting an ability score bonus because of your background. Skill, proficiency, religion, and either arcana or deception. Language is one of your choice. Suggested equipment costs 7 gold. Holy symbol, amulet, or reliquary. Common clothes, robes, 5 torches. Feature, hidden lore. When you fail an arcane or religion check, you know what being or book holds the knowledge you seek. Finding the book or paying the being's price is another matter. Adventure and advancement. Members of your former order may be hunting for you for re-enlistment, punishment, or both. Additionally, your cult still seeks to open a portal, affect an apotheosis, or otherwise cause catastrophe. Eventually, you may have to face the leader of your cult or perhaps even the being you once worshipped. Connection and memento. Roll 1d10. Choose or make up your own. So a cultist connection could be the cult leader whom you left for dead, the voices which still speak to you in your dreams, the relentless inquisitor who hunts you after your past heresy, or the masked cult leader whose identity you never learned, but whose cruel voice you would recognize anywhere. And mementos include things like the cursed holy symbol which appears in your possession each morning, no matter how you try to rid yourself of it, the amulet which is said to grant command of a powerful construct, or a compass which points to some distant location or object, or the birthmark which distinguishes you as the chosen vessel of a reborn god. All right. Those do sound more interesting than what the backgrounds do for you in 5th edition. What are they called? There was the things in 5th edition, like your... I forget what they were calling them, but like the things that were supposed to be role-playing elements in the game, but I never really found came up all that much. Folk hero, guild member, marauder, outlander, sage, sailor, soldier, urchin. You grew up in the streets. See, some of these, you grew up on the streets. This is your background. But in some of the different cultures they defined, it seems like, street urchin could be its own culture. So if I were writing it, I want to be clear about what exactly does it mean for something to be a background versus something to be a culture versus something to mean, a heritage and a class. It seems like we have a little bit of bleed here, potential bleed, but that's probably okay. Destiny. You're supposed to have a destiny? So we've got motivation or inspiration. Each destiny has a table of example motivations that represents the heart of your character's desire to be an adventurer. Fulfilling your destiny. Oh, we haven't even looked at classes yet. We're going really long here. I thought we were just about done, but actually classes are a big thing. I really don't want to go on till tomorrow. I don't want to do tomorrow on this. And classes probably aren't enough. Let's just look at classes right here and see what we've got here. Anybody know something specifically that we should look at within classes? Zero Theory says, if the movie brings people into the hobby, that's a win. We'll just lure the players away with better games. That's Robert says, that's why I like prestige classes, and 3rd edition is an advanced class among the core rules. Destiny is the last choice, DBJ says, is the last choice in character creation, replaces alignment. Okay, so there's no alignment, but there's destiny. What system has the GM set alignments based on player conduct? I don't know. Bonds and flaws. Yeah, that's it. Bond, flaw, and ideal. Right, yeah. It seems like that was another part of 5th edition that was like, hey, we'll put this in here. It doesn't do a whole lot, but if you want it, it's here. Okay, adventuring classes. We got a lot of these. So, okay, let's just look at the class. So this is our good. We got a summary here. So if there's specific ones that we need to go and look at in detail, let me know. But so an adept is a living weapon that hones their control over body and mind, and channels their unwavering focus to achieve amazing feats. Is that like a monk then? I don't see monk. I thought adept was going to be a spellcaster, but it says a living weapon that hones their control over mind and body and channels their unwavering focus to achieve amazing feats. Bard, the charismatic performer who uses their music to conduct and as a conduit to wield powerful magic. Berserker, a warrior that harnesses their inner rage to dispense and absorb tremendous amounts of damage on the battlefield. The cleric, a holy guardian that channels divine energies to both heal and harm in service to the higher power. Druid, a secretive sage who shuns civilization and harness natural magic to call forth the elements and even change their own shape. The fighter is the master of martial technique with expertise in a wide variety of weapons and combat maneuvers. The herald is an oath-bound warrior driven by an inner strength to champion their cause through might and holy magic. So the herald is an oath-bound warrior driven by an inner strength to champion their cause through might and holy magic. So is there no paladin? Is the herald supposed to be a paladin? The marshal is a natural leader and master of the art of strategic warfare who inspires others to greatness. We've got Ranger, a wilderness and exploration expert who has honed their skill in survival and combat to endure even the most unforgiving wilderness in pursuit of their quarry. Rogue, a master of stealth and subterfuge, reliant on trickery, keen reflexes, and quick fingers to gain the upper hand. Sorcerer, a magic wielder who brings special power springs forth from an innate element of their blood or heritage. Warlock, a spell slinger who obtained arcane power through an eldritch bargain with an otherwise worldly entity. Wizard, a spellcaster who has mastered the arcane arts through years of practice and diligent study. So there we go. DBJ says Warlock, Eldritch Blast has changed. It has 4 options. Okay, let's go down and take a look at Warlock since that was specifically called out. So wait, we just went by. Was that? Oh, that's all adept archetypes. I like that bard picture. There's lots of information on classes. So like this is multiple pages on classes, on each individual class. Like this is all still bard. Berserker. Cleric. All right, let's just scroll down. Let's try to get to Warlock here. Herald. Rogue. Warlock. Okay. Robert says knights and cavaliers are always natural stand-in for paladins. Millmaster says, not to be negative, but I absolutely hate statements like X character is a natural leader. That's something to be role-played. Okay, so here we are. Here we are at Warlock. Okay. Creating a Warlock. So Warlocks meddled with forbidden powers, forces much wiser or less courageous folk would leave well enough alone. When fairy ghosts tells ghost stories and religious narratives strike fear into the masses, you instead see an opportunity for growth. So class features. Hit dice, 1d8 per warlock level. Hit points after first level, 8, just 8, plus your constitution modifier, so that you're not rolling there. Hit points at first level. Hit dice is 1d8 per warlock level, but at first level, it's 8 plus your constitution modifier, so you get max hit points. Hit points at higher levels, d8 or 5, plus your constitution modifier per warlock level after first. So first level, we got proficiency bonus over here. We're going up to a 6. Features Warlock archetype, Pact Magic, Eldritch Blast. So this tells us that we've got 2 cantrips known, spells known. Now, the Warlocks use spell points, so we don't have like spell slots here. Spell level first, secrets known, invocations known. All right, let's see what that's all about. Proficiency is light armor, tools, a game set, some cards, saving throws or intelligence and wisdom. Skills, you choose 2 from arcane, deception, history, intimidation, investigation, nature, and religion. You begin the game with 110 gold coins, which you can spend on your character's starting weapons, armor, and adventuring gear. You can also select your own gear or choose any of the following equipment packages. Also consult the suggested equipment section of your chosen background. Heretical Scholar set, Inconspicuous Civilian's Clothes, Shadowy Scoundrel set. So at first level, you choose your Warlock archetype. You have reached out to, stumbled upon, or otherwise crossed paths with a powerful entity beyond the ken of mortals, an otherworldly patron who sets you on the path of the Warlock archetype. Okay, so your choice of archetype grants you an expanded spell list and features at first level, 6th, 10th, and 14th level. So Pact Magic. I guess we'll get down to that in a moment. But Pact Magic, with care, practice, and dedication, you have learned how best to siphon and channel the otherworldly powers you have gained from your patron. Cantrips. You know 2 cantrips of your choice from the Warlock spell list. You learn additional Warlock cantrips of your choice at higher levels, as shown in the cantrips known column of the Warlock table. Spell points. The Warlock table shows how many spell points you have. To cast one of your Warlock spells at first level or higher, you must spend a number of spell points dependent on the spell's level, as shown on the table below. So a first level spell costs 2 spell points. You can also cast a spell you know at a higher level by spending the appropriate number of spell points. Okay, let's go on here. So our spell-focused Eldritch Blast. Okay, so here's how Eldritch Blast works. At first level, you learn to use your patron's power as a weapon, blasting enemies with an eldritch force that defies even the laws of magic. Choose one of the following features. Eldritch Disturbance. You can use an action to strike a creature you can see within 60 feet with a reality-distorting curse, blending pain both mental and physical. The target makes a wisdom saving throw, taking 1d10 force damage on a failure or half damage on a success. Eldritch Ray. Alternatively, Eldritch Ray. So we have 4 different options here. This is nice. Yeah, I don't think the Paladin, I mean, like Charlemagne's court had paladins. Isn't that the function of the charisma score? We're talking about leadership here. Like, just because you're a paladin doesn't mean you can't be Arthur the shy paladin. Yeah, the sky paladin. You could be the shy paladin, yes. I guess a class like the strategist should be a leader since it's in the job description. I forgot the class's name. 4E had the warlord class. Yeah, see, you could do it through something magical like an aura. You could do that. Paladin with high, Stray says, Paladin with high charisma started in earlier games where the charisma ability allowed how many NPCs you could have as followers, but not just graced with good looks. Pan says, is this a reskin or a plug-in to 5e? I would say it seems to be a revision too. I mean, I would say there is a lot. I would say it's not a reskin because there's a lot more here. And it seems also to be more than just plugging into 5e. Although I think you could pull things from it. But it seems like an entirely rewritten standalone game that is that's kind of its own thing. Millmaster says personality often informs occupation, but occupation doesn't guarantee X personality. That's why paladins needed minimum charisma. John says paladins required 17 charisma in the old days, which was nearly impossible 3d6. I think this idea was to make the class rare. Yeah, that's part of class. I mean, an older style sort of opinion on balance, right? That one of the ways that you could have a more powerful class, but the way that it balanced that out was by making it comparatively rare. Like if you had to roll that, then you weren't going to be able to play a paladin, but you weren't going to be able to play that class in general, whatever class is being gated in that way. So if you all of a sudden do roll the stats, you could say, oh my God, hey, I could be a paladin and then this powerful class or whatever. I don't think that works. That's really not a modern definition of balance. Because what if you want to play something else, right? And like, oh my God, I just rolled this. And plus, how many times are you rolling characters anyway? It just seems like a strange thing to say that what you roll at the beginning, especially if you are going to go all the way to level 20, you're kind of stuck with. Yeah, so this is a standalone replacement. Yeah, Mel says, I mean, in OD&D, your characters could get you more, your charisma could get you more or less followers. Yes. I even think that was something in advanced D&D, AD&D as well, I think. So, okay, so Eldritch Disturbance, that was the cursing them, which is pretty cool. Eldritch Ray, you can use an action to create a deadly beam that strikes a creature within 120 feet. Make a ranged spell attack against the creature, dealing 1d10 force damage on a hit. Or Eldritch Scythe. Once per turn, you would make a melee weapon attack as part. Once per turn, when you make a melee weapon attack as part of the attack action or an opportunity attack, you can instead make a melee spell attack, lashing out with an ephemeral and unearthly blade. On a hit, the target takes 1d8 force damage. In addition, you can choose a creature that you can see and that's within your reach. It takes half as much damage. So you choose one of these to be your way of making an Eldritch Blast. I like this. I like the additional options. What is Eldritch Whip? You can use an action to thrash a creature with a scintillating tendril of arcane force. Make a melee attack against a creature within 15 feet, dealing 1d6 force damage on a hit. At the end of your turn, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to half the damage you dealt with Eldritch Whip this turn. Oh, that's interesting. So you're like sucking energy from them with this tentacle, which lasts until the end of your next turn, because it's only 1d6, but you get to bulk up as well. When you hit the creature with your Eldritch Whip and you already have temporary hit points, you can end the temporary hit points early to gain a bonus to the Eldritch Whip's damage roll equal to half the number of temporary hit points you ended early. Well, we're having and having and having, but that's interesting. When you hit a creature but you already have temporary hit points, you can end the temporary hit points early to gain a bonus to the Eldritch Whip's damage roll equal to half the number of temporary hit points you ended early. That doesn't seem like a whole lot of damage. So you can deal 1d6. So if you happen to hit with all 6, then you gain... Yeah, that doesn't seem like a whole lot. Oh, I guess you can store them up because it doesn't say that you have to end the temporary hit points early. I guess you could hit a lot of people with this lash, build that up, and then deal the damage back out to somebody else. Having the number of temporary hit points that you've got there, because if you hit with 6, you would gain 3, but that would only be a +1 bonus to the next attack. So if you hit again and rolled a 6, that's an interesting idea. But I think you'd have to save them up. So if you saved it up, then you might be able to deal out some damage with the whip. So I think that's cool. Thank you for pointing that out, DBJ. So was a good one to go and look over. Eldritch invocations, what are those? The gifts of your patron are manyfold. Not only can you channel their magic to work spells, but you can also siphon away talents, tricks, and reality-defying essence to perform other impressive magical feats. At second level, you gain an Eldritch invocation of your choice. Your invocation options are detailed at the end of the class description. When you gain certain warlock levels, you gain additional invocations of your choice, as shown in the invocations column known on the warlock table. Extra secrets of Arcana. You are able to learn a new invocation in this way. You may instead learn the secret of Arcana. Pact Boon, Pact of the Blade, Pact of the Chain, Pact of the Tome. Ability score improvements. Invocation of the Courts. Also at 4th level, you gain a bonus invocation, one to help you traffic in the courts, both otherworldly and mortal. Choose one invocation from the following lists: Beguiling Influence, Court of the Outer Realms, Eyes of the Rune Keeper, Gaze of Two Minds. It just seems like one characteristic of this game is there's just a lot more options and stuff about like every part of it, including classes. Beginning at 5th level, your Eldritch Blast becomes more vicious when you use Eldritch Ray, Eldritch Scythe, or Eldritch Whip as part of your action on your turn. As long as you make no other weapon attacks, you can attack twice instead of once. Eldritch Evolution. Pages of material on each class. See, this is all Warlock options and stuff. Warlock archetypes. Warlocks are defined by their approach to eldritch mysteries. Their patron may be an ever-present menace or merely a cosmic echo. No matter the bargain struck or the entity courted, the warlock is the hero of their own story and the pilot of their own fate. Alienist. Warlock spell list. And then we get on to Wizard. So lots of stuff. So I think that basically that's going to be the end. It's probably going to cycle us back around to where we had started this. Well, equipment. I don't remember if we looked at equipment or not, but I don't think we really need to. But then probably getting around to how to play. There is a lot of information here on equipment as well. I guess that goes with the idea of a lot more different types of types of options and stuff. Because I was just, as I was scrolling by, I was like seeing materials, fine and masterwork stuff. Because sometimes the equipment sections are rather short, but looks like more options for equipment going around with the whole theme here. I can see making this a option for a 5e replacement. In fact, being well, it seems like, as always, when going over something like this, it makes me excited to get back to work on my own stuff. Adventurer's Guide, still equipment. Okay, so there's tons of equipment and stuff in here. So there's also a bunch of options for that. What is this? Like magic items per expected, starting wealth past first level, starting gear past first level. Oh, so if you're trying to create a character that's beyond first level, I was seeing these different tier packages. When starting at higher level, you may choose to spend your starting gold on the equipment packages organized by tier. These packages represent popular and common choices for adventurers of a given class and level, intended to present an easy use index. If you're using a unique build for your PC, you might prefer to swap out items or buy entirely different items. Starting gear packages for Tier 0 and Tier 1 characters are available in your class and background information. The higher tier packages presented here are based on the starting gold, the tier's lowest level. When beginning at a level other than these, subtract the value of the suggested starting packages from your starting gold. Tier 3, Tier 4, other favorites for an adept or a berserker. That's handy. That seems handy. Like I said, sometimes you may want to create characters that are at higher level. You don't always have to start at 1. Building a stronghold. That's in here. Multiple strongholds, castles, encampments, farms, guild house, laboratory, library. So the equipment section is also robust in this game. Example strongholds. What is this, like people, NPCs to attract or something? Followers. We were just talking about recruiting followers. So here is recruiting followers and different types of followers to recruit: apothecary, bodyguard, cook, diviner, minstrel, footpad, porter, healer, smith, sage, squire, teamster. Follower personalities and backgrounds. Oh, someone asked about multi-classing. That was early on. How did we handle multi-classing and dealing with like combat maneuvers or something like that? So we do have multi-classing here. Adventurers are not locked into only one character class and can realize new and interesting concepts by mixing the abilities of multiple classes. So we do have multi-classing rules here. You know, to me, talking about prestige classes and things like that, if you're going to do class-based and you're going to be doing class-based games and leveling up, one important thing to me is always to make sure there are reasons why you would want to just go 0 to the highest level or 1 to the highest level in a single class. Millmaster says, OD&D wizards eventually could cast Wish, but warriors could become lords with massive land holdings, retainers, castles, etc. Neuromancer says, I think claims that Class X are great leaders is more fluff to inspire character concept, like saying Harvard graduates are great lawyers. If it's not 5e, you can't stack if it's like 5e, you can't stack temporary hit points. Oh. So that's going back to the whip situation. Yeah, I guess we would need an adjudication on whether or not you can stack temporary hit points in this particular game. Also lasts 1 turn only. All right, so we would need clarification. So that one does seem a little bit weaker to me, but I would need to check on the temporary hit point situation here. Robert says, second edition had followers, but not as a function of charisma per se, but more so of reputation. Okay. Stray says leadership was a feat in 3rd edition. Robert says henchmen were above that. So hirelings, then followers, and then henchlings. Henchmen were above that. Oh, that's right. Hirelings, then followers, and then henchmen. I do remember specifically talking about henchmen in the game. Millmaster, at the start of 5e, the multi-class Sorcerer Warlock twin Eldritch Blast build was redonk. Henchman did have a modifier, though, based upon charisma. DBJ says, Eldritch Blast is a class feature, as is Smite, no longer a spell, and Smite isn't powered by spell slots in Advanced 5e. Robert says, and first E had PC charisma component to NPC henchmen. Yeah, they might run away while you're in the dungeon. Robert says, temporary hit points seem like a function of maybe adrenaline, so would temporary strength, of course. Let's get, maybe we should get clarification on that. But so this is all about how to multi-class. We do have feats here. Whenever your class gives you the ability score improvement feature, you can forego taking that to choose a feat instead. So we've got lots of feats here. Doesn't surprise me. There are a lot of them in this book. Weapon specialist, well-heeled, woodcraft training. Oh, the next chapter is specifically about ability scores. Oh, I think that's probably actually where we started, because we were talking about ability checks, and this is basically how to play the game where we started with different, I remember that picture right there. So yeah, I think that this is where we started. So we have come full circle. Let's see if, let's see if we can find temporary hit points. Yep, this looks like where it'd be. Some spells and special abilities confer temporary hit points to a creature specifically tracked as a buffer against damage. When you have temporary hit points and take damage, the temporary hit points are lost first, and any leftover damage is then subtracted from your normal hit points. For example, if you have 5 temporary hit points and take 8 damage, you lose the temporary hit points and then take 3 damage. Healing can't restore temporary hit points because they are separate from your actual hit points. However, they can exceed your hit point maximum. A creature can be at full hit points and receive temporary hit points. Temporary hit points can't be added together. Yep, so we've got that rule as well. So you can't just stack up and save your, what is that, Eldritch Whip or hit points, which that means you're not going to get a lot of them. If you have temporary hit points and receive more of them, you decide whether to keep the temporary hit points you have or gain the new temporary hit points. So if you've rolled well, you don't have to reduce your hit points. For example, if a spell grants you 10 temporary hit points when you already have 5, you can either have 10 or 5, not 15. If you have 0 hit points, receiving temporary hit points doesn't restore you to consciousness or make you stable. They still absorb damage directed at you while you're in that state, but only true healing can save you. Unless a feature that grants temporary hit points has a duration, they last until they are depleted or until you finish a long rest. All right, now we know. Hey, Jason. Yeah, this has been an extremely, I guess there was enough material to go for another day on Advanced 5e, but I just kind of wanted to wrap it up. So I didn't know how long it would take. But yeah, we've been going at this for quite a while. Neuromancer says, sorry, I meant that specifically for the E-Whip, it says temporary hit points only last until the end of your next turn. It did? That makes that one even worse and worse. I thought that one was really cool. Whip. Oh, it does right here. So I guess it does say that. So maybe that one becomes not as fun as I thought. I guess they've worked it out though, as far as how the balance though. That one seems fun. I would have said otherwise. That would have been one of the ones that I would have chosen to take. Sounds very Cthulhu-esque, but yeah, in that case, these last only until the end of your next turn, and you can't stack them anyway. So, so there's no reason to end it early in the next turn unless you plan to tank an all-out attack in the next turn. Yeah. Or maybe it ate some spinach that day. DBJ says A5E has width, not height. Plenty of choices, removal, or limits on stacking. Power creep was a survey issue. The team hit hard. Yeah, this has been epic. We have had much longer streams, but this might be, as far as just the traditional morning grind goes, this might be up there with the longest or the longest traditional morning grind might be. All right. Let's see. I am going to sit here and work on the beat sheet, but like I said, I'm changing up the way that I'm doing things. I've got to restructure my process of getting things done in order to actually get things done. So we may be talking about that over the next coming days to try to get some of these tasks accomplished and actually move them off my list and move these big rocks and actually get more stuff out and done. So especially over the next 2 weeks, I'm supposed to drive really hard at some stuff and then hold myself accountable by another business meeting in 2 weeks. I do have a meeting this afternoon on the beat sheet, so I have got to I'm going to sit here and spend some time specifically working on the beat sheet. Then I'm going to have the meeting on that, and then get to the new way of doing work. So I hope everybody's had a great time. This was fun. I like what I saw out of Advanced 5e. I'm excited about it. So I hope you are too. Everybody go have a productive and fun day, and grind on.